everybody, welcome to our vegan video series. Today we're going to be focusing on breakfast foods. We're going to make vegan pancakes and vegan pumpkin scones. These are especially good for around the holidays when suddenly your son or daughter comes home from college and doesn't drink milk anymore. Somebody shows up and doesn't eat butter, or you just happen to be out of eggs and still have to, feed a whole house for the morning. So hopefully these will help you out. We're going to start with vegan pancakes. These are really simple and use mostly things that you'll have in your cabinet already. So a lot of people won't even be able to tell that they don't have eggs or don't have butter. The first thing you're going to want to do is mix your dry ingredients. So you're going to take a cup of flour. This can be whole wheat flour, it can be white flour, whatever kind of flour you want. You're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar and 2 tablespoons of baking powder, which seems like a lot compared to traditional recipes, but I promise it will be good. And the last thing you're going to add is 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Mix it up. I usually like to use a spatula. Next you're going to want to add your wet ingredients, which is milk, lemon juice, and vanilla. And this is where you can customize the recipe for younger kids. You can use chocolate soy milk, you can use vanilla soy milk, you can use almond milk. So 1 cup of soy milk. You're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice, and that makes the pancakes really fluffy. One teaspoon of vanilla. And 2 tablespoons of oil. And again, I'm going to use a spatula to mix. You don't want to overmix, just enough so that all the ingredients are blended together. You could use a whisk if you wanted to, like that. They are going to be pretty fluffy, so don't worry if you, if it's not really thin. If you do want it thinner, then you can add more milk. Now you're going to turn the skillet on to medium heat. You're going to spray your pan with a little bit of cooking spray. And you're going to take a spoon. And I like to do 1 or 2 at a time, but if you have a bigger grill, it'll be easier to feed a lot of people. And while this is cooking, I usually like to assemble the toppings. You can mix berries in. I'm going to slice bananas and put them on top. You could add in chocolate chips or walnuts. So a lot of people have trouble with knowing when to flip pancakes, and my general rule of thumb is when you start to see bubbles appear and they start to pop in the middle of the pancake, then that's when you know that it's brown on the other side and can start to flip. So a lot of times in between batches, it's a good idea to cool off the pan, otherwise you're going to end up with really burned pancakes. So usually you can just do that by heading over to the sink, letting it's going to sizzle up, but just running some cool water over it. So once you're finished with all the pancakes, you can put whatever toppings you like. Drizzle with some maple syrup. You'll be good to go. Now we're going to make the second recipe, which is vegan pumpkin scones. The first step is that you're going to want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And then you're going to combine the first 4 ingredients. The main ingredient of this recipe is pumpkin, which is great for this time of year because you can easily find it in supermarkets. It comes canned, so it doesn't go bad very easily, so it's a great thing to have on hand. You're going to add 1/2 cup of pumpkin, 1/4 cup of non-dairy milk, so soy milk, almond milk. I'm using soy milk, it tends to work best. 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And you're going to want to mix that up with a spatula until it's just mixed. Now you're going to set this bowl to the side. And you're going to combine the rest of the ingredients. It does have a few more ingredients than the other recipes that we've been featuring, but it's mostly spices, and so it's not really that time consuming, just a few more steps. So you're going to add 2 cups of flour. That can be, I'm using whole wheat flour, you can use pastry flour if you want it a little. 1/2 cup of sugar. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. teaspoon each of salt, cinnamon, and nutmeg. And a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. You're going to mix that all together until it's just blended. The next part is probably the most time consuming out of the whole recipe. We're going to cut in vegan butter. We're going to cut it in using a fork. So what I do is I measure it out 1/2 cup, scoop little pieces of margarine in at a time. Use it. And you're going to cut it in using a fork. Just kind of like this, kind of pressing down, making sure it blends into the flour. You're just going to do that until, the butter gets a little bit smaller and disappears into the flour. So this is closer to what you want it to look like, where the butter is in small pieces throughout the flour mixture. So once that's done, you're going to want to add the pumpkin mixture to the flour and margarine mixture, and be sure not to over mix it. So when you're done, it's going to look like this, resemble more of a cookie dough. You're going to want to transfer it to a floured cutting board. And you're going to knead it together until it forms kind of a dough ball. And when you're done, your dough should look something like this. Then you're going to spray a baking sheet with cooking spray and transfer the dough to the cooking sheet. Kind of press it down so it forms almost a pizza dough shape. You want it to be about 8 to 10 inches around. So after that's rolled out, you want to cut it into 6 or 8 equal wedges, depending on whether you like them bigger or smaller. I'm going to do 8 here. And you want to give them a little separation from each other, so just scoop them with a spatula so they have room to rise. So once they're separated, you want them to look a little bit like this, and then you're going to put it in the oven for 22 to 26 minutes. So once you take the scones out of the oven, you're going to let them cool and you're going to make the glaze. To make the glaze, you're going to add 1 tablespoon of non-dairy milk. I'm using soy milk. 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. And then a 1/4 teaspoon each of ginger, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Throw that together with a whisk. So when it's all mixed, it's going to look like this, and you're going to want to take a spoon and just spread it on each of the scones. And you'll have a complete vegan breakfast.